We've just seen reports come through from Kenya's central bank saying that it's ready to take corrective action to ensure that the interbank foreign exchange market is driven by events and fundamentals at all times rather than speculation. To what extent are we seeing speculative activity playing a role in the currency weakness that's come through?
Well, we think that the depreciation of the Kenyan shilling that we're witnessing right now is mainly driven by the inflation expectations of market participants having increased significantly in recent weeks. These inflation expectations have been going up because of the surge in global food and fuel prices, as well as by strong domestic demand in Kenya. And this has translated into an increase in domestic prices. And we were already seeing at the end of May core inflation in Kenya running at about 7.5%, which is above the central bank's target. So the central bank has already been taking measures to deal with these inflationary pressures by allowing interest rates to rise. And we believe these are the right measures to be taken by the authorities in order to deal with the pressures associated with the weakening of the shilling.
Should the central bank be more aggressive in that regard? Because we've had some criticism coming to the fore saying that the central bank has been behind the curve when it comes to raising rates.
Well, currently we've seen an increase in the central bank's policy rate. The last one was in May by 25 basis points. There was also an increase in the reserve requirement by 25 basis points. But I think we also need to look at the increase in the repo rates and also in the treasury bill rates. These, the last two have increased significantly. Treasury bill rates in the past few weeks have gone up by as much as 4%. And these are already significant increases. Of course, further tightening may be warranted looking forward, especially with regard to the central bank's policy rate, which is not effectively playing its binding constraint. It's not really playing a punitive role. And this is one of the reasons for which we have seen an increase in banks going to the central bank's overnight lending facility. But we believe that with the increase in interest rates that we are witnessing, this will also lead to an increase in the opportunity cost of holding on to dollars. And over time, this will help the currency appreciate again as we move to conditions where inflation is stabilized and returns to lower levels.
Of course, we've had Kenya's central bank governor Njuguna Ndung'u not specifying exactly what measures the bank would take moving forward. Aside from raising interest rate, what are some of the other options that are available or are at the bank's disposal?
Well, we think that right now the main focus really should be on monetary policy. And we have been working closely with the authorities to work on monetary policy. We think that the best way to deal with these pressures is through monetary policy. The flexible exchange rate of Kenya has served the country well, and we believe that it should be maintained. A flexible exchange rate is also an effective adjustment tool to deal with external shocks, and we believe that that flexible exchange rate regime should be maintained and that the focus for the time being should really be on monetary policy.
Of course, in Kenya, we've seen the banking sector regulator moving in to audit commercial banks' currency dealing books, and that in an attempt to catch suspected irregular traders as, the shilling sunk to that record low of 91.25 to the US dollar yesterday. What are you making of that move that's now sitting on the horizon?
Well, we think that in order to deal with these, whether they are speculative or non-speculative flows, is really hard to determine. But we think that the main measure really should be to increase interest rates. And that's the most effective measure in order to deal with these flows into the dollar.
Ragnar, taking the economic context into consideration here, in your books, what is fair value for the shilling at this stage?
We don't really make projections on the exchange rate. Rather, our focus is on inflation figures, and that's why the main focus of our policy is to work on inflation and through monetary policy. We don't project exchange rates as such or assess that there is a specific level of the exchange rate that we want to reach. Our main focus is on preserving a flexible exchange rate regime and over time gradually accumulating some reserves so that the central bank over time meets its objective of having sufficient reserves to cover about 4 months of prospective imports. That these are the main priorities.